Hello there. The mainstream press will try to play this one down, but the people of Europe have had enough of open borders, net zero and all things woke, and are about to fill the European Parliament with populist nationalists. You know, those that the lefties screech about being far right. You can hear the drumbeat of a centre-right revival developing across the European Union, and the first real indicator will manifest itself in fewer than 2 weeks' time. And the November US elections could herald the return of one Donald Trump to the White House next year, something that will rock the globalist agenda. The talk right now in Europe, though, is of a substantial lurch to the right within the European Parliament once the dust has settled from the EU elections between the 6th and 9th of June, starting in just 9 days' time. And for extra headaches for the Eurocrats, the farmer protests are back. Next Tuesday, the 4th of June, farmers across the EU, formed from groups like the Farmers' Defence Force from the Netherlands, will descend on Brussels for the mother of all protests. Watch this space. And I bet the BBC had to write this through gritted teeth when they said this about the EU political situation. The far right has won elections in Italy and the Netherlands, leads the polls in France, Austria and Belgium, and has a stake in the governments of Finland and Slovakia. Now they could secure more than 3 in every 10 votes when the EU's 27 states vote in European elections from the 6th to the 9th of June and become a powerful force in the European Parliament. 30% of the upcoming votes across the EU could be from what the BBC calls the far right, when what they really mean is those overly quiet and tolerant people who've been right so far and have had a gutful of open borders, wokery and net zero nonsense. While Euronews says, Conservative forces are set to win the European elections, the latest Euronews super poll from the Euronews Poll Centre can exclusively reveal. Parties from the centre-right, ultra-conservative and far-right are leading the polls in the main EU countries. Something that could unseat the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen too, to be replaced by someone further right than she. So I assume that in the future the BBC will be referring to our so-called partners in Europe as the far-right European Union. Does have a bit of a ring to it, doesn't it? And instead of continually screeching about the beastly Tories, the likes of radio presenter James O'Brien and the in the hat Steve Bray could launch their tirades against the ultra-right-wing EU politicians running Europe. And in the meantime, in the UK, we have politicians gearing up for a general election, promising the usual freebies and completely ignoring the destruction of British heritage and culture going on around them. In fact, here's one of our brightest and best politicians pleading with a group of men and begging for their votes.
Ashton, my voters were very upset with the Labour Party. I was with you and you saw me over the line. You supported me in seats that are similar to mine. People lost their seat. You were there for me and I don't believe I could have done that without you. Now, I know that people are angry about what's happening in the Middle East, and I said live on TV, and I say to this day, if me resigning as an MP now would bring a ceasefire, I would do it. I would do it. If I could affect change, the only thing I've done, and Madge knows this, I got 3 British doctors out last week from Rafah who were stuck there. I worked hard day and night to get them out. They were stuck there because they've been helping. And I'm now working on getting aid in again because those doctors told me they went in with 10 suitcases and that lasts a week. Now they've been restricted to two suitcases. That won't last. That's nowhere near enough. So I promise you, the Labour Party, including myself, is doing everything we can, because nobody wants to see. And nobody wants to see what's happening. And only last week, the Labour Party were supporting the ICC. The Conservatives didn't support the ICC. So at this general election on that issue, we can't affect anything when we're not in government. And I'll be honest with you, if Labour get into government, we are limited. I will be honest, I'm not going to promise you, because Biden, who's the US, who has way more influence, has only got limited influence in that. And Qatar, Saudi Arabia, all of these people, we are all working to stop what's happening at the moment. We want to see that. So I promise you that's what we want to see. And if Labour get into power, we will recognise Palestine. I will push not only to recognise, but there is nothing to recognise at the moment, sadly. It's decimated. We have to rebuild Palestine. We have to rebuild Gaza. That takes more than just recognising it. It takes resources. It takes infrastructure. It takes expertise. We need teachers. We need civil servants. We need all of the...
The sheer desperation of it. And why no other women present? In fact, it seems like there were absolutely no ladies present at all. And Rayner's now off the police investigation list in time for the election, after being told no further action will be taken where the sale of her property is concerned. Anyway, you know something? It looks to me like the Gaza Strip has more political representation through the UK ballot box than they do in their own area, where the last election was held in 2007, when they voted those Hamas terrorists into power for the first, and probably the last, time. Yes, more and more of our politicians, on the left anyway, are going out of their way to try and bag the votes of a certain demographic. And if that means importing strife into our country, then they care not one jot. I wonder if Angela Rayner will now toddle off to reassure the Jews in her community too. And don't forget the Christians either. Although most politicians care less about them than they do about the Satanists. The upshot is that the UK is about to take a massive lurch to the left, so as to give Keir the Neil Starmer's incoming Labour government a massive mandate to redistribute any wealth that we do have left into Gaza. It points to a total failure of migration policy when our politicians spend more time on placating the demands of newcomers than doing the basics here in the UK. And it's not like Labour has been complaining about the levels of inward migration, is it? In fact, the only people complaining about it have been those outside Westminster who have to live with it. And the Westminster bubble has a disdain for anyone outside of their own little echo chamber, doesn't it? But the people realise that it doesn't matter how many freebies the UK government, whatever their political persuasion, promises us, if our borders remain porous at the current level, because there won't be much of a cohesive country left for a government to run, will there? And the citizens of the European Union seem to be waking up to the threat faster than we in the UK are. Hence this expected European lurch to the right. And now we have Marine Le Pen of the French National Rally Party reaching out to the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni to form a new right-wing supergrouping in the EU. Le Pen told Italy's Corriere della Sera newspaper on Sunday that this is the moment to unite. It would be truly useful. If we manage, we will become the second group of the European Parliament. I think that we should not let an opportunity like this pass us by. And Politico.eu reports that Poland's former Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki from the Conservative PIS party in the ECR has also left the door open to a big tie-up on the right, and there is wide speculation that Hungary's Viktor Orbán will affiliate his Fidesz party there after the election. The woke lefty UK rejoiners must be looking on with dismay. Their pet little socialist EU project is becoming a haven for the far right. Their dream of reversing Brexit would end up with them sitting around the table with Marine Le Pen, Giorgia Meloni and Geert Wilders. How long before the pro-EU types are spurned by their very own woke socialist cabal? Even that ardent pro-EU acolyte, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, is against his country being forced by Brussels to accept migrants or pay a huge fine for not doing so. But it looks like he will be forced to sign on the dotted line. Euractiv.com says that although Tusk has told his Polish voters that they won't have to take in asylum seekers nor pay the fine, a prominent opposition politician, Mariusz Błaszczak, has said, "It looks like Donald Tusk lied when he said that Poland would not have to take in illegal migrants. The French Prime Minister has just stated that it was possible to force Eastern European countries to sign a document obliging them to accept migrants or face high fees for refusing to do so." Force the Prime Minister of a country to sign an internationally binding document? The EU does sound very autocratic these days, doesn't it? Good job we're out of it.